What's up, everybody? Welcome again to the Northview Church podcast. My name is Zach. I serve here as one of the pastors here on staff, and I'm really excited to be joined today by some of our worship pastors here at Northview. We've got Thad, who serves at our Fishers campus. We've got Matt, who serves here at Carmel campus where we're filming. We also have Justin, who kind of leads our worship pastor team and kind of floats around and leads at different campuses. And then we have Rachel, who leads at our most recent campus we opened in Kokomo. And today we're going to be talking about Christmas. We're coming into the Christmas season, and I want to kind of pull these guys in for a conversation to really talk about how do we keep Christmas, the main thing of Christmas, keep the main thing the main thing. We are in a culture, I think, that just has a lot of distraction and the commercialism of Christmas, a lot of which is good. I mean, I think about all the fun things about Christmas, but yet in the church and for people that are maybe checking out their faith, it's like, how do I balance these two things? And so I read this quote a couple of weeks ago, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. And the quote says, our culture, meaning I think just our culture here in the West or the United States, our culture is haunted by Christmas. Do you agree with that? Disagree with that? I mean, I think the context is that would ever really truly lose its roots. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Anybody can start. Doesn't matter to me.
Well, it's like leave it to America to commercialize something that maybe started out as very meaningful, right? And so you listen to these songs on the radio, and even as you were commenting earlier, it's like every other song, people might be worshiping Jesus and not even know it.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of this weird sense of, I'll acknowledge this and allow like myself to go to certain places, maybe with certain songs, regardless of where someone's at in their faith. But it almost becomes this sort of autopilot, right? Where you just you go through the motions for a season, and there might still be that gap between the head and the heart. And what does it look like to start to bridge that gap?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that just the word haunted, because it's almost like this eerie thing. I think that's almost kind of how we move into the Christmas season, right? Because as soon as Thanksgiving over, it's like, boom, Black Friday, all this like chaos, you hear all the crazy stories. And so, sometimes we get haunted by the to-do list as opposed to focusing on what it's really truly all about. So,
yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, you think about, like, if you listen on the radio, if you've got Christmas Pandora up or something, it's so funny. You have so many arrangements of so many different songs. It's like, how many covers can we do of,
the
Oh Holy Night?
Song,
yeah, right.
Right.
But you're listening to that, and yet you will hear Oh Holy Night. I mean, even if you're somebody who's if you're not a Christian and you're listening to your Christmas Pandora and you've got, we were talking about earlier, I saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus. Like, we'd be fine if we never heard that song ever again. But you hear that, but then eventually you're going to hear Hark the Herald Angels Sing, and you're going to hear a line like, God and sinners reconcile. Mm-hmm. If somebody's like, well, what does that even mean? Or are they just singing it just to sing it? So I guess that's kind of what this quote's getting at. And so do you think will we ever really abandon it then, if that's always going to be there?
As long as the radio keeps playing Christmas shoes, Christmas will always be haunted. That's what I have.
True story.
If you love that song, we're sorry.
We're drawing a line in the sand. Yeah.
It's funny, somebody mentioned, somebody gave me one year, I think this was like a weird white elephant gift. Somebody actually got me the sheet music for that song.
Nice.
And I was like, who gave them inside intel to how much I really don't like that song? And so it just we just handed it off to different employees' mailboxes every time, and it eventually just made it all the way around. We finally realized nobody likes this song because we're just consistently handing it off to somebody else.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, you hear, I mean, again, all the tradition that's involved with that. I think that's why I think the quote's kind of leading us to it is haunted, because there's always going to be those roots there, and we're never, even if you try to eliminate it, you can't really.
Right. Well, and it kind of goes like, you can't eliminate it because it's part of history. You can't, when I think of deep roots, it's like, you can't help but ask the question eventually, why, even if generations try to forget what Christmas is, like, you can't rewrite history, so it's always going to be there, like Christ's birth and why it came. So you can't go back on that.
So as artists, as musicians, obviously you guys are kind of, your primary role at our church is to provide musical direction for each of our congregations. But as we come into the Christmas season, how do you, in your head, what does success look like in engaging people during Christmas time from a musical or even a creative standpoint? What are some conversations that you guys have as a team that would engage someone who attending church during Christmas, that's a regular rhythm for them, versus the person who they'll never come to church, but maybe they might check out a Christmas service. Maybe they're skeptical, they're searching, whatever. How do you as a team strategize how to best engage people during the Christmas season?
That's good.
As we plan for the services this year, one of the things we've talked about is how do we keep from just going into autopilot as we sing the same songs that we've been singing since we were little kids, and how do we make them meaningful, or how do we engage our hearts and our minds into the powerful truth in these old songs that are just kind of a part of our tradition and who we are. And we rearranged Joy to the World and are introducing that to the church here in a couple of weeks. And as we were working on that arrangement, Matt and I had a conversation about, like, how do we help people in the moment, in the middle of this song, to engage deeper and this not just be a Christmas carol,
Right. Yeah.
but how do we engage this so that it becomes a worship song?
Yeah. Well, I think I've heard it said too that familiarity sometimes breeds over familiarity, right? So the more you experience something over and over again, like Christmas, the easier it is to kind of turn off your heart to what is really going on in that season. And, you know, if you break down some of those songs like Joy to the World, line by line, you know, He rules the world with truth and grace and makes the nations prove the glories of His righteousness and wonders of His love. I mean, that's the gospel.
Yeah.
You know, you're preaching scripture to yourself, right, in that song. And so I think that's, to your point, Justin, how do we pull those things out and highlight them and say, this is like, you may think that you're just singing a song that makes you feel warm and fuzzy, but we're talking about the kingdom of God. And what does this mean for you and I? And as much as I maybe like to, you know, we complain about kind of the commercialism of Christmas, I think it sets people up to kind of be extra sensitive to those things. So it's like, how do we maybe even utilize that, right, for God's glory?
Yeah.
You know?
If you guys had to identify like a particular reason why music is so meaningful at Christmas time for people, what would those reasons be? Is it more general, just because music is compelling and it moves people emotionally? Is there something different or unique, maybe is a better way to say it, about Christmas that engages people in a different way? Maybe speak to that.
I think music a lot of times is often attached to memories or emotions or whatever you might be feeling, because you can almost go and listen to some old song you maybe listened to in high school and all of a sudden you're back in high school in your mind. So it's kind of
Christmas
like,
has that element too.
it does, absolutely. We think of those Christmases when we maybe were expecting a certain something or a feeling we had when we were together with family or whatever. So there's something special just about that. And when you connect that with the true meaning of Christmas, I think that's really where the magic of Christmas really comes into play. It's not just about gifts that we want, but about the ultimate gift, who is Jesus. You know. So
That's good.
I think it's cool because you have all those memories, and music already breaks down barriers. But I think a lot of the time, if you're new to church, you haven't been a long time, you're not going to know a lot of the music that's been coming out. But if you're coming at Christmas time, you're coming in and you're like, oh my gosh, I recognize that. I have a place here. And everyone else here also knows it. So it kind of builds that community as soon as you come in. And that's what I love about Christmas services, because like everyone just feels like family right away, because we all grew up knowing these songs. We all have different memories with it, but most everyone will recognize at least one song during the service.
Sure. I think about people, and maybe some people in our audience are kind of hearing this, and I think this is kind of I would say the universal struggle about Christmas, and you spoke to the commercialism piece earlier, Matt, but I think we're all susceptible. I mean, it's very easy to fall into the trap of just this. I think about my own family context about, okay, what's the budget this year for Christmas gifts, and what do our kids want, and for us, like, our kids are pretty young. It's like, when do we start Christmas traditions? Like, when do they get? I mean, and all that stuff is good, but I think where the rubber meets the road for me is it's not that these things are bad. It's just that we overvalue them, even though they're good. That's the temptation. And so I guess I just, maybe speaking personally for you or your families, like, how do you yourself avoid falling into that trap? Are there things that you've done intentionally to try to, kind of, as I said earlier, to keep the main thing about Christmas?
maybe just one thing that I've been aware of recently is just attitude going into the season. Season's a crazy time. This Christmas time is crazy for us just as a church, but it's really crazy for everybody. It's planning flights and hotels and all this stuff when family comes in. So, but it's amazing how if your attitude, you go in with a heart of, whether it's just a servant attitude or just a season of thankfulness or whatever it is that you feel you need to be focused on that year, your whole perspective changes. Like, you don't have to worry about being the first in line. You don't have to worry about like, oh, well, if this tradition doesn't happen, our Christmas is ruined. It's okay. So I think we just forget that. Like, if we can have a joyful attitude, it's going to change your Christmas either way.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
I think about the tradition piece of the Christmas is ruined if X or Y or Z doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That really does reveal some of that selfish side.
Absolutely.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say that, it's easy to think about, even for me, that Christmas is this Jesus coming to earth. It's this thing that happened 2,000 years ago. But what does it mean to realize that every day of my life and all of our lives, Jesus is continually stepping into that, the messiness, the brokenness, that the way he came, like as a baby, not in splendor, it kind of sets an example for me about, if I really am dialed into what Jesus did on Christmas, how would that change? Like you were saying how would that change the way that I live?
Right.
And I always go back to the line, there's a line in Joy to the World that just says, let every heart prepare him room. And so it's like, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for you? And that's going to probably look different for everybody, but to your point, that about just the busyness of the season, I think you have to fight it almost extra hard to create that space. Because if you don't, it's an easy thing to miss. And next thing you know, it's January, and you know,
it's kind of this daily decision that you make. Every day you wake up, you're going to choose joy.
And Justin, you've got young boys. You're facing the traditions and all the stuff that comes with that is all part of it. How do you navigate that as a challenge of balancing both things?
And that is a challenge, because you want to have moments and memories with your children, but creating those moments, the moments are about them. They're about us. So how do we make, Christmas and the moments special, memorable, nostalgic, but not always be about us. You want to enjoy the visit to Santa Claus and the list and the excitement and anticipation that we all experienced as children. But that is all so meistic and consumed with get and want, and where is the Jesus in that? Where is the need for a savior, or even the seeking of your heart to prepare room for Christ and all of that? I don't know. I think I haven't figured it out.
No. Well, I just think about.
Stay tuned.
Let me know if you
next year.
time,
We'll have the answer.
next podcast. Tune in.
Justin will have a conclusion to my question. No, I just think about. You think about our culture. As somebody said recently, that our culture teaches self-assertion.
Yeah.
It's just, if you want something, go out and get it. And you think about, and I think that's what people are repelled by the commercialism is that this is only meant to be profitable. This is only meant for sales. This is only meant to continue to push the narrative of, again, some of the things of which are good and fun and actually make Christmas really memorable, but it's this overvaluing of those good things that kind of takes God out of his proper place.
Yeah.
And when you keep Jesus truly at the center of Christmas, then the other stuff just becomes stuff. And you can enjoy it as simply that. And I think about even just the first Christmas and think about what was happening in our world at that time. It's not any different really than it is now. We go back and read Matthew and Luke's account. That's Mary and Joseph are fleeing from danger. Herod is trying to kill all the boys under 2 years old in Bethlehem because he's afraid. He's so like the most powerful man in the Roman Empire is so paranoid about a baby, and like all this like crazy stuff. And then you think about what our world today. And Jesus came in the middle of a conflicted world just like it is now, and yet Christmas comes every year, and the busyness of life never slows down. Mm-hmm. It's always happening. There's always sin in the world. There's always evil in the world. And every Christmas, we have to confront the fact of these things are only going to bring temporary relief.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know, Santa Claus is not a great savior. Let's just let him be Santa Claus. You know, let's just let Christmas traditions be traditions. Does that make? I mean, do you resonate with that? For me, that's how I'm trying to, like, in this season. Even with my kids, I've got a 3-year-old and twins are 18 months, and I'm trying to think, how am I going to try to teach them that in a practical way that doesn't also strip away. And I'm kind of this old curmudgeon, you know, that's like, you know, down with Santa and down with the commercialism and, you know, just being a Grinch about it.
Well, one thing my dad did was we were kids that I remember to this day, and this was one tradition we carried on as my family has started. But we would do our Christmas Eve service, and we would come home, and on Christmas Eve, we would typically open gifts from, like, you know, the siblings through each brothers and the grandparents, and then we would save the other for Christmas morning with Santa and all that good stuff. But one thing we did before we opened any gifts, and as a kid I look back and I was like, oh, I was so excited, but we would always sit down and read the Christmas story out of Luke. And it was a way to kind of refocus, like right before we go to do the stuff that every kid loves to go do. It was kind of this, like, remember why we're doing it. And then you get to share that together. So it was a cool kind of refocusing moment. I think the special things in Christmas come in the simple quietness of your mind when a revelation kind of happens. Like, that's what makes Christmas special. And so it was just kind of cool to see that growing up. And I'm like, man, that's something I want to take to my kids. You know, so
that's actually a good segue, and I wanted to kind of get you guys some interaction here. You can leave some responses in the comment section. I want to hear about just famous Christmas traditions in your household. Like, it's not Christmas unless this happens. So I'd love to kind of poll the crew here and see what you guys think about that.
It's a good one.
So
Nothing.
For me,
good. Thank goodness.
For me, growing up, we always would go to my cousin's house for Christmas Eve, and so we would make gingerbread houses. Only I never thought twice about this. They weren't made out of gingerbread; they were made out of graham crackers with like this sugar cement.
So they're graham cracker houses.
Graham cracker.
But did you think they were gingerbread, or you were like, oh, this is?
No, because I knew I didn't like gingerbread.
Oh, okay.
But they were gingerbread houses. I've never actually had a gingerbread house.
How do you know you don't like it?
I've had gingerbread.
Have
you ever had a gingerbread?
It's not the same.
Man?
Just douse it in icing and it makes everything better.
But not a house.
Oh, okay.
So, but we'd make these houses and decorate them with like all the good candy, like Sour Patch Kids and all that. And it was not Christmas until we did that.
That was it.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Still is.
You use like icing and like all that to put it together.
So we like
and
pipe.
stuff.
Well, our parents for a long time would pipe it, but so now we've tried to. The aunts and uncles have tried to get rid of this tradition because we're all 20s and 30s now. But we know
you're just now old enough to pipe it yourself, and you're quitting.
We're piping it ourselves now. When we have kids, we're still gonna do it.
There would be mutiny in your household if it really went away. Yeah, that's great.
I think our Christmas tradition is trying to figure out what our Christmas traditions are at this stage. You're like, we change it every year. We started with like breakfast on Christmas Eve because we get home late, and so it's like throw something together quick with little kids. But I have no idea. Y'all go ahead.
TBD.
So we usually, working on Christmas Eve, we're always leaving late on Christmas Eve. So typically we're hungry and on the way home want to grab some food. And so my and Claire's, our very first Christmas Eve, the only thing that was open was a Chinese restaurant. So we went and had Chinese and sat there and said, we're going to do this every Christmas Eve. So that's like our Christmas Eve tradition that we do every year is we go leave church, go have Chinese food.
Nothing says Christmas like General Tso's chicken.
That's right.
It reminds me of a Christmas.
That's pretty nice, actually.
It reminds me of a Christmas story where they chop the head off the goose. Hopefully you guys don't do that, but that's the first thing I thought of.
And definitely Home Alone. It's got to happen at some point.
That's great.
Which I have not seen.
Gosh.
Ever. It's on the list this year.
Oh my God.
Next time you're making a gingerbread house, throw that in.
That's right. Just put it on the background. You'll be fine.
Wow. That's kind of disappointing.
That's
okay. That's okay. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, so I was just thinking, we used to do this thing when I was younger, probably all the way through high school until you get to that age where certain traditions aren't cool anymore. And then a few years later, you're like, oh man, I wish I would have still done that because I actually like my family. But there's this book called The Night Tree that we started reading. And basically what this family would do is they would get together all of these kind of food-based decorations for trees. And we would walk out into a forest preserve and bring like hot chocolate, apple cider. This is Christmas Eve. And we would find a good tree, sing some Christmas carols, we would pray. And then we would just decorate the tree with like string popcorn. You put like peanut butter on the pine cones, all that stuff. Just kind of a Christmas for the animals, right? So we would go back every year. You could see the string.
Everyone is welcome.
That was right. We don't exclude anybody. Even
the animals.
Even the animals. So, but it was just kind of a fun excuse to do something different, to be together.
Cool. Yeah.
And then by the end of it, someone was getting hit in the face with a snowball, inevitably.
Or a peanut butter pine cone.
Right,
So
we would lose some presents along the way.
A snowball or a peanut butter pine cone?
I don't know. Pine cones are sharp.
Pine cone sounds bad.
We my wife's family they hid the Christmas pickle, which I had no idea was even a thing. And so this is a kind of a German tradition.
I don't think it is.
Well, it might be made up. But here's what they did. They got all the siblings together, and they would say, we've hidden this little ornament, this Christmas ornament that was a pickle. We've hidden it somewhere, and if you find it, you get to open the first gift. And so you just take, my wife's the oldest, and you take her 3 younger brothers, and it was just for blood. I mean, they would just. I remember the first time. We got engaged that first Christmas. I had no idea what their Christmas traditions were. I'm thinking about my own, and then we're gonna now find the Christmas pickle, and it was like people were throwing people out of the way. One time, my brother-in-law hit his head on the fireplace, got hurt, and I'm just hearing all these stories, and all for the opening the first gift. And for them, it was like, we will not move forward with anything else about Jesus' day until somebody finds this pickle. Yeah.
I'm like envisioning you finding what's this pickle?
Yeah,
right.
Linebackers
I'm the winner. Right. Up in the hospital.
Yeah.
Christmas was great.
For my family, we had, compared to that, probably way lamer traditions, but my mom always made brunch, and she always made sausage gravy and biscuits. That was kind of her specialty.
That's not lamer.
That's
great.
Big deal.
Yeah, so you had Christmas opening presents. You ate your candy out of the stocking because that was the only morning you could. That was the only way you could get away with it. I was like, well, Santa brought it, just go down the hatch, and then you eat all this food, and then you just go into this food coma in the afternoon and take a nap.
So is your mom from the South?
Yeah. What's that?
Is your mom from the South?
She was not, but I would say that a lot of her cooking, especially around the holidays, is more of that Southern comfort type food. So we had sausage gravy and biscuits. We had some sort of sweet rolls with it. It was just a carb fest.
Sounds amazing.
Very healthy,
I need to call her, mismatch it, and come over.
That's right. Yeah, she would be. So we're coming up on Christmas Eve, and obviously, at this time of the year for us in the church, people say, Christmas Eve is kind of the Super Bowl for us as Christians, and particularly for those of us that work in the church. We are putting a lot of planning and a lot of time into engaging people during Christmas Eve services. And so this year, the series that we're kind of doing is about carols, which we talked about earlier with the music. And you guys have kind of collaborated and done a really cool project where you've rearranged some traditional Christmas carols. And I just love to kind of hear the heart behind that, and maybe how that's going to be executed during the month of December, and maybe even specifically for Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Well, you take it. You and I. Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
It was. It happened, very quickly. The whole idea, but I think it was such a strong idea to take some of these songs that have stood the test of time for a reason, and to really tap into that. And I think when I first heard that the theme for each weekend in December for our Christmas series was going to be carols, the first place my mind went to was all those cheesy songs we hear on the radio.
I was like, I don't even know anybody named Carol.
Who's Carol?
How are we going to do this?
Many are
we don't have a Carol.
How many songs are written about?
Are there multiple carols?
Yeah.
Carols. Yeah. I was confused at first too.
Either that, or I thought Steve Poe had a whole bunch of girlfriends in college named Carol.
Named Carol.
So it was about Carol 1,
Every
Carol 2.
Steve, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you'll appreciate Justin's comment about
we need
your
to find
girlfriends. Carol. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's that was Justin Thomas.
Carol's.
Justi.
But really, they're more like Christmas hymns, I guess you could even use that word.
That's a better,
the songs that we're doing.
Yeah.
All Holy Night, Joy to the World, Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Some of the language of these songs, nobody bats an eye at the word pining, because it's in a Christmas song. You're I don't know what this means. I'm just going to sing
singing it anyway.
Right?
Yeah, right.
But I think for us, kind of like we were talking about earlier, how can we breathe fresh life, or not even fresh life, but just give people maybe fresh eyes to see and to hear what's the truth that we're singing, and what does that actually mean in our day-to-day lives? Because I think it's easy to kind of like you said earlier, Justin, to just go on autopilot and you put your head down and you're busy and you're trying to, be with family, be with friends, and you don't have time to create space. And so I think that's in some of these songs, the thought was, how can we create a little bit of space to get off autopilot and to actually open ourselves up in song, in worship, to maybe something that God would want to remind us of.
Yeah. Maybe define the terms a little bit. So when I mean by rearranging, we're not talking about changing necessarily the words of the song, but maybe just stylistically, musically. That's kind of more of the direction you guys took it, right?
Yeah. I would say, really, and even vocal melody, we wanted to keep pretty authentic too, because we want people to engage
It's familiar.
in that. Yeah, it's familiar. So,
Yeah. So
There's one thing you don't do with the traditions. You don't change them.
No.
then it's not
And
tradition.
I think that
right?
extends to music, right? I mean, if we,
Yep.
I think for us in the church, because there's so many, as I said earlier, so many different arrangements of these songs, and they have played with the melody, and they have kind of done some different things, which is from a creative standpoint is fine.
Yeah.
But when people come in, I mean,
Yeah.
I think you would agree, they're going to want to sing it like they know it, right?
Yes.
Right.
If anyone ever tries to change the melody to Christmas shoes, I will put my fist down and riot, because you cannot.
Is that one of the songs that we're doing this year at Christmas Eve?
We can't say.
Oh,
So
you
at the
can't
end
say.
of it's 14 minutes and 8 seconds of silence at the end. It's the hidden track. So just keep
Wonderful.
going.
B-sides.
Yeah.
That'll be the new tradition for some family to listen to in silence.
Yeah.
But so, what are the songs that you? Am I allowed to ask, or is
Sure.
those surprises?
You can ask.
Oh, I can't ask.
You
but
can
you just
ask.
can't
We
tell
just
me.
might not.
Right. It'll just be
okay,
silence on this
The-
end.
you
Okay,
get short.
Silent Night. That's
Yeah.
one of them. Yeah. So if we're not going to be able to say it, how can people access it, or how is it going to be worked into the services? Like, why should people kind of check that out?
Yep. So you can visit northviewchurch.us / or /, whichever one is going this way.
Yeah.
Which one is that?
I guess it'd be // /.
But that looks like a forward
I
slash.
don't even know that
I
I
think it's
question
forward
my.
slash.
It's forward.
Try in both slashes, and
both
one of them
slashes
will work.
work. Yeah.
If one slash doesn't work, try the other one.
northviewchurch.us / or /Christmas.
Okay.
And that'll take you to the page on our website that'll give all the information about the Christmas services at all 7 of the Northview campuses. And there will be some invite material there, and then also access to those original Northview worship Christmas songs.
Yeah, that's
So the
awesome.
2 songs, we're going to let the cat out of the bag, are
Exclusive. Tune in.
Joy to the World
Okay.
and Oh Holy Night. So Matt took the lead on arranging and writing Joy to the World, and Thad, Oh Holy Night. And these guys, I mean, we have some incredibly talented team. Rachel sang the lead vocal on Oh Holy Night, and you guys just killed it. I can't wait for the church to hear them. They sound so good.
Definitely. Well, we'll maybe just wrap up with this just real quickly. Do you guys have a favorite, with the exception of Christmas shoes? Do you actually have a favorite Christmas song or Christmas carol?
Which carol?
Yeah, which carol do you like the best out of? Yeah, right.
Week 2? Oh my God.
Yeah,
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think for me, I think about Oh Holy Night, and when I hear that song, that does feel extremely worshipful to me. Because you think about, somebody mentioned earlier about Christmas songs feeling like worship songs. To me, that it talks about just the idea of, like, in His name all oppression shall cease. Like that's the sign of hope of Jesus coming to this earth, and that yes, the darkness and the chaos and the evil is not yet stopped, but one day it will.
Yeah.
In His name, and so.
Chains shall He break, the slave is
Oh
our brother.
yeah. Like to me,
Yeah.
I'm singing that, and I guess that's why I'm like, we'll never be able to truly abandon the roots of Christmas if stuff like that's continue to be played. So for me, I think that really helps me feel connected to what the more holistic part of Christmas. So that'd be mine. But yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.
If I'm in the happier side, I'd say Joy of the World. There's something about O Come Emmanuel too that I love.
Yeah.
It's just the eeriness of it, and the
It's in a minor key, and that kind of brings
There's
There's
I'm a
tension.
sucker for the minory stuff sometimes,
Yeah.
just depending on what it is. But
That's
yeah,
a great new word, minory.
minory.
We're just making up words left and right.
That's
here on
right.
this podcast.
But no, I think that song brings the tension of like
Yeah.
the world that what Jesus came into, but yet.
Right. Well, I just love
doesn't-
the expectation of it when it's singing about "Oh Come." I mean, we're talking about hundreds of years of this longing for Christ to come.
Yeah,
and so
yeah,
there's
yeah.
just something special about
That's
that.
cool.
So
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a line normally if you would have asked me this, a few weeks ago, I probably wouldn't have said, "Hark the Herald Angels Sing." I think sometimes there are certain arrangements that turn you on or turn you off to the lyrics, right? And there was an arrangement from another church that we're doing of "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," and there was a line, "Born that man no more may die," and I had never. It just got me, I think in that moment it was like, in case you're wondering, I was just counting the words in that sentence. That's why I paused. In 7 words, to say such a powerful thing, I think it was a moment of like personal conviction for me.
Yeah.
I thought about specific things in my life. So to me, it probably varies from year to year. But I'll probably never get tired of Michael Bublé's Christmas album if we're just going easy listening.
Jazzy.
Yeah. So
that's great.
So this isn't a sacred Christmas carol hymn, but "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" is definitely my favorite Christmas song.
do you know all the words?
I don't, but I do have a funny Christmas song story.
Okay.
So
Love for you to tell it.
last year,
He's getting ready.
Buckling up
He's
there.
revving up. Yeah.
last year, we're singing our songs in the car, listening to them with our kids, and we go to pick up our 3-year-old son from his preschool class. And the teacher said, "I got to tell you this awesome story." She said, "Your son was singing Feliz Navidad, but he misunderstood the lyrics." Remember when you were a kid and you'd sing songs the wrong way, but you knew that's what they really were?
I still do that.
I was going to say.
Nobody
So
has to
she
know. You're
said-
singing in the car alone. You just make up your own lyrics.
There you go.
She said he was walking around the class today singing "Police Got My Dad." Police got my dad.
That's awesome.
The question is was he wrong?
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
we'll leave that
They
in.
want to wish you a merry. He just goes right to the next part. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
That's funny.
Great, really clever writing in "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch." Like just that very Dr. Seussy kind of like, what's that, the 99.5-foot pole? Like who writes that in a song? It's kind of a fun thing. Yeah. What about you, Rachel?
So if I'm talking not the sacred hymn ones,
sure.
if you guys heard the 12 Days of Christmas Muppets version, y'all.
Did you just go?
I have.
It's good.
I heard it the other day again. I was like, that's my
She
favorite.
just went Jim Henson.
We know it wasn't in Home Alone.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't in Home Alone.
No.
But I do love "Oh Holy Night." Just that line about the world had been just like in darkness and in sin, and then he
Yeah.
appeared and the soul felt its worth. Like it's just so cool. It's like
Wow.
just people have been waiting, and there was so much darkness. And like, when is he going to come? And then he came, and it was like, this is our savior,
Yeah.
and this is incredible. So I just think it's such a cool song, and just a reminder of what that night must have been like. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like that's what people are chasing ultimately in all the stuff, in
Yeah.
all the possessions, like that your soul could feel worth.
It's a
At the
big
end of the
deal.
day, that's what people are chasing, That's what we want.
I just think about that tension of how do we not avoid that trap, and even as us as a church, we're going to have a lot of people come and check out Christmas Eve services, and we would love for you to come and be a part of that with us. But I think about just the message is that this idea that there is darkness in this world, and Christmas doesn't apologize for that. I mean, it never once says in the biblical account that the world was fine and it was all great, and there was real suffering and there was real pain, and there was this longing, like when is this Savior going to come? And the idea that there was nothing or no one within humanity that could fulfill that. It had to come from outside the human race, and that's why Jesus, got in the flesh, came, and to bring hope to the hopeless and bring light into the darkness. And that's kind of the hope, I think, for us as a staff as we go into the Christmas Eve season, this Christmas season, that's our heart of why we do church and what we want people to be a part of. And so if you're here and you're tuning in, we'd love to have you. As Justin mentioned earlier, you can go to northviewchurch.us and you can look at all of our campus
Which slash is
locations
it?
with
Forward
/
slash.
Christmas. All the service times will be listed there, the locations of where our campuses will be meeting at. We would love to have you come and check out a Christmas service. And I just want to say thank you to you guys for coming and hanging out with me and having this
Thanks for having us.
conversation. Yeah. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for being here.